All right. And a good day, everyone. And welcome to today's session of Truly Foundation and A Course in Miracles with your host and guide, Oliver Blue. And I just want to check my audio here. Audio is good. Turn my volume down a little bit. How's everyone today? Today is a great day. And I'm excited because we're going to start a new 10-day series. It is actually section 12 on page 269 in the workbook lesson for students for Course in Miracles, and where we're going to spend the next 10 lessons answering the question that has been asked here. You know, as a spiritual teacher and a transformational coach, I really do understand that the quality of the questions that we ask are so important. You know, a lot of us don't know how to ask quality questions. You know, most of us have been trained to ask why why questions or how questions. How can this be? How can I do this? Or why is this happening? Or why come? You know, most children, when they're being mentored, and you know, when they have to be denied some things for their own well-being and their own safety because they don't know any better, you know, the one question that they will always ask is why can't I? And why questions and how questions and when questions, they're really low vibrational questions. They're not really high quality questions. High quality questions always begin with what? What questions are the highest vibrational questions that one could ask themselves or ask yourself? What is this for? What am I? What am I doing? What questions are very high vibrational questions? And there's a reason for that. And you'll notice that in the Course in Miracles, the themes that are introduced here in this last section of the book, where they're asking what is salvation, what is forgiveness, what is creation, you know, what is the Holy Spirit, what is the reason that they're using those particular questions, because what questions are very high vibrational. They get to the root. They get to the source. And so we're going to start today with this series. The next 10 lessons will be in support of what we talk about today. And that is the question, what is the ego? What is the ego? And when you hear that word ego, I'm sure for you, just as well as for me or for anyone, what comes to mind when you hear the word ego, for the most case, we think of one's inflated idea about themselves, or one personal idea about themselves. Or ego has to do with that which centers around the oneself, or it centers around the idea of an I, of a personal self with a personal name and a personal history, right? And so, as we unpack this idea of what is the ego, we're going to be talking about this not so much from a psychological point of view, because the word ego is used a lot in psychology, but we're going to be looking at it from the point of view of A Course in Miracles. We're going to be looking at it from a point of view of reality versus unreality, because that's what the Course in Miracles is based on. That which is real cannot be threatened. This is the basis of the Course. The Course makes a vivid distinction right off the bat in terms of what is real and what is not. In fact, its ideas are built on the premise that reality creates that which is already permanent, that which only exists, that which has never not existed and will never not exist. That's what reality is somewhat defined in terms of the Course here. In other words, that which changes and vacillates, that which comes, that which goes, that which takes on different shapes and sizes, that which is unstable, that doesn't qualify for reality. Reality is that which is changeless and unalterable, that which is formless and timeless. Something that doesn't last forever, something that has not been forever, then it doesn't qualify for the idea of reality from the Course's perspective. And then it goes on to say that which is real cannot be threatened. That means that it can't be changed, it can't be altered, it can be unrecognized, it can be denied, but it can't be changed or altered. And ultimately, reality is what prevails. In this world of time and space, that is what is being proven by all of the history of time and space. Because everything in time and space have changed, everything have unfolded, everything have evolved. There's nothing stable here. Things just keep on what? Evolving, changing, moving, taking on different shapes, ideas, different effects. Well, that is what the Course described as that which is not real. Because reality is stable. Reality is constant. Reality is permanence. Because if there was nothing permanent or stable, right, or certain, if there was something that if there was no foundation that one could have confidence in, then we're all in trouble. We're all in trouble. But because reality does exist, whether we want to accept it or embrace it or not, even whether we want to embrace the fact that we are part of reality, and we are, when I say we, I'm not talking about the individual body, mind, experience and experiences in the self that we believe that we are. But I'm talking about we are part of it as the one self that we share with reality itself, that we share with love itself, that we share with God itself, that unchangeable dynamic, that unchangeable existence that we call God or reality or love or higher power or the universe. Doesn't matter what we call it. The reality is that, do we acknowledge that it exists? And if we don't acknowledge that it exists, then we are ignoring, or we are basically not knowing. And you know what happens in many cases when you don't know. Like they say, what you don't know can hurt you. What you don't know can really cause you to have experiences that are not in your best interest. I'll just put it that way. And so ultimately it says, the Course says, reality cannot be threatened. Unreality doesn't exist. And in the acceptance of that, the Course says, this is where the peace of God comes from. This is where we'll find peace with ourselves. This is where we'll find peace with our neighbor. That's where we'll have peace with our Creator. When we embrace, when we welcome this reality that exists and it can't be changed. You've heard me say here that none of our human activity, none of our human events, none of our human experiences, none of our human ideas can change or alter that which is real. It's just experiences that we're having, and that's great news, because we think that what we do alters reality, but it doesn't. All it does is what determines our experience, and experiences are temporary. They're not even real. Just think about all of our experiences. When we come to the end of this incarnation, all of those experiences become a thing of the past. They're not a thing of the future. They're a thing of the past. And when that which is real no longer gives life to that incarnation, it moves on. Reality moves on. And it doesn't move on. It's just that it no longer has an effect on that, what we call the body. And so the body becomes lifeless. Why? Because it was never real. It was temporary. Just like everything on this planet is temporary except for your reality. Everything in form and in time is temporary, meaning it's subject to change, meaning that there is a beginning and there is an end to everything. Just look around you. Even your thoughts are temporary. Your feelings, your emotions, your sensations, your relationships, your ideas, every single solitary thing in this realm is temporary. Except for you. And when I say you, I'm not talking about the you that think that it is living in this world, which is where we're going with this conversation on the ego. Because the you that's living in this world, who is the you? Or what is the you that's living in this world? Who is the I? What is the I that's living in the world? What is that you call I? Is it the real you that loves you? Or is it a temporary experience, just like all the other things in time and space are just temporary? All the things, like the Bible says, that when we look at the things that are seen, we're looking at the temporal. We're looking at that which is what? That which is temporary. That which is mortal. Meaning that the form that it is in, the place that it is in, it will eventually not hold that space, not hold that idea. It eventually is in a place of dissolution. Everything is dissolving in this world. Everything is passing away in this world. It's a temporary world. And you are the only reality that's here. Just think about that. You're the only thing here that can think. You're the only thing that here can choose. You're the only thing here that can imagine and bring forth that which it imagines. And that is coming from not your temporary self, but that's coming from the energy, the power, that infinite power that is within you and within me and all humanity. So, what is the ego? What is ego? You know, I've heard it said, and you probably heard it said, you probably said it yourself, that ego is edging God out, ego, edging God out, or edging out reality. In other words, ego is turning away from that which is real to that which is unreal. Edging God out, edging reality out, edging out love, turning our back on the truth. That's what ego is. And establishing our own truth, establishing our own identity, establishing our own way, establishing our own idea. Whereas we heard in the previous lesson that it is every thought of God that is reality, and that is who we are. We heard that there's only one will, and that's the will of God. But like I know, we live in a world where there appears to be billions of individual cells with individual wills and individual ideas, having an individual experience and an individual existence that is separate from all other existence. That's the message of the world. If you just looked at it on face value, if you look at it based on the conditioning and the training and the traditions and the history that has been passed down throughout all the years. And all of this is based on a world of perception. All this is based on the temporary, the temporal. It's not based on permanence. And so I can honestly say that at one point in my life, that's all I was aware of. That was my level of awareness. And it led me to a place of a tremendous amount of fear, a tremendous amount of anxiety. Because there was something about that state of being that did not bring peace, that did not bring joy and happiness, that did not align with something inside of me that was inspiring me, that was wooing me, calling me into greater levels of awareness, calling me to a greater understanding of what life is and what am I and what is it all for, and all these what questions. Remember, they are high vibrational questions. And when you get to a point in your life when you start asking what, like, what would I love? That's a great question. What would I love? Right? What would I love to do, to give, to have, to express, to be, to share, to fix, to solve? What would it be? Those are high vibrational questions, as we've said. So let's just get on into the lesson here, because I can go on and on and on and on, setting the foundation for this subject of what is the ego. But the foundation has already been set. And that foundation is truth. That there is only the one. That oneness reigns. that truth reigns, that love reigns, that there's only one universal intelligence that is the source of all things, that there is one source, and that all things are of the one source. All things are equal and joined with the one source. All things come from the one source. There is but the cause. The one source is the cause of all things. It is the source of life. It is the source of being. It is the source of awareness and the source of consciousness. This one thing, this one source. And so in reality, there's only the one. God is, and there is nothing else. That is the foundation for this subject for this conversations that we're going to have over the next 10 days about the ego. The foundation for that conversation is God is, therefore I am. That God is, therefore there is nothing else. So what is this thing called the ego? What is this idea that the ego exists? If the ego is that which represents that which is separate and opposite, then how and where does it exist? Well, hello there, Heidi. I was wondering, I know I'm on a little late today, but I've been knee deep in it today, Heidi. Let me read what Heidi said. Let me bring up what I'm going to put it on the screen, Heidi. Heidi Peck says, there is only one of us dreaming, and that is the one mind, believing in all the forms to include misperceiving 7 billion body forms, and that is correct. Heidi has a perceptual problem. Heidi is an ego form. That is correct. Is it real? Is that perceptual self, is that dreaming self, is that self-informed, is it real? Meaning, does it line up with the fact that it doesn't change, it doesn't alter, it doesn't come, it doesn't go, it doesn't have a beginning, it has an end? And when you answer those questions and it says no, that it doesn't align, then yes, that self or that idea of a personal self, I like to call it the government self, because we give that self and government name, we give it a government number, and it lives under some government of this world. But yes, but we find ourselves here in this temporary dreamlike experience, right? We do find ourselves here, associated with a government name and a government number, a body that is required to be here in this time-space continuum. So what do we do about it? Do we just ignore it? Do we just disown it? Or do we realize that there is this reality of a true self that has influence, it has access to express its reality through that body form, body mind self. For what? For a purpose. What is the purpose? There's what question again. So what would be the question as we become aware of this local association with a personal self? What becomes what? What becomes needful? What becomes the purpose? And that's what we've been sharing here in these 360 lessons. And what's the first order of business is to what? To discover the true identity of who we are. that transcend the personal self, the time limited self, the body self. So the first order of business is to discover that there is a reality, and it's not this reality. And then the second order of business would be, well, what am I here for? What is this set up for? What's the purpose? Why do we need this? Well, I think as we get through this lesson on what is the ego, we're going to understand that all of this is only possible because somehow, somewhere, this tiny mad idea of separation creeped into eternity somehow. How is that possible? Well, in reality, it's not possible. So if it's not possible, that means what? It's not real. So you mean to tell me that all this experience that I'm having in this body self, all this experience I'm having in this earth realm, in this planet, in this world of form and time, is not real? Of course it's not. You can make that assessment for yourself without having anything but local awareness. It is quite evident that everything here is temporal. It's quite evident that everything here has been made. And what is it made of? And I'm not talking about the materials that it's made of, but what idea is everything here made up? It's made from the idea of separation. It's made from the idea of scarcity and lack. It's made from the idea of fear and separation and division. It's made from an idea that is not real. And so ideas don't leave their source. So the idea of separation has never left its source. So everything that it sourced is within the source. That's why the things that it makes are temporary, because they're not real. They will eventually return to the nothingness that they are. And so when we get so supercharged and so highly developed and believing in the unreality of that which is unreal, that's where the fear, the anxiety, the suffering, the pain comes from. Because we become disappointed and disillusioned by the whole thing. We get to the point in this world, we say, this world is crazy. This world is insane. And those are good ways to describe it. That doesn't mean they're bad. It just means it is what it is. That which is not real is what it is. It's not real. Just like that which is real, well, it is what it is. We just have to learn to accept what is. Even our own true identity. I still ain't got to the lesson. Y'all messing with me. So, what is the ego? Okay, remember, the Course in Miracles says, this is a Course in Miracles. It's a required course. It's not the only course, but it's a required course. Basically, what it's saying is all of humanity is required at some point to be enlightened and to wake up. It's required. Even God said that's what salvation is. It is the guarantee that all humanity will eventually wake up to the truth. So it's a required course in that sense. But there are thousands of courses and means and paths for us to come to a place of awakening, to a place of oneness. It's not one source. It's not one path. It's not one religion or one science or one art. Basically, everything in time and form can be used by infinite intelligence to wake us up. Everything that you've ever been involved with can be usable to wake you up. Every activity, every event, every possession, every relationship, every sensation, every idea, every thought can be used for your awakening. And it is being used for your awakening. That's why you've heard me say it. I'll say it again. Your life has been perfect the way it has. Your life has unfolded perfectly because everything in your life has been working towards your awakening, for your coming into the knowledge of the truth of who you are. All of it. Even the family that you were born into, the community that you were born into, the nation that you were born into. The gifts that you developed, the decisions that you've made. All of it is being used to bring you to a place of finding and discovering your true self. And then when you find and discover your true self, school begins. Class is in. Because from that knowing, when you discover the infinite you, the infinite self, the all-powerful you, the you that is correct, that is connected. Well, we're not really connected. The you that is a part of the God is reality. Then school begins. And when I made a statement a few minutes ago, and it pricked something in me. And the statement I made a few minutes ago had to do with the fact that your life has been perfect just the way that it is. And it reminded me of a scripture that, if I can find it, it'll give you a good place to share it here. I'm not in a hurry. But I think it's really important that I don't just say some of these things and then don't give some justification. Man, I wish I could find that. Oh my God. Is it 17? Let me go back to 17. Here it is. There it is. Thank you, Lord. In the scriptures, in the Bible, chapter 17 of the book of Acts. Chapter 17 of the book of Acts. this is Paul, who was traveling, and he visited the city of Athens in Rome. Back in biblical days, a lot of things happen in Rome. You know how they say, when you're in Rome, what you do when you're in Rome, Heidi? Heidi, tell me what you do when you're in Rome. I'm sure you know. I'm gonna wait to see if Heidi gonna put that up there. Heidi, what do you do? That's a high quality question. See, I say, what do you do when you're in Rome? So Paul was visiting Rome on one of his journeys, and he came into the city, and I'm just going to read this. And they said here that they was going to gather the men of the city, because here this stranger coming into the city, and it says that it says, and they took Paul and brought him unto, and I'm in verse 19 in the book of Acts. Okay, here it is, Heidi. When you're in Rome, you do as the Romans. You do as the Romans, right? So it says here in verse 19 that they took Paul and brought him unto Areopagus, saying, may we know what this new doctrine whereof thou speakest is. They wanted to know, Paul, you gone out of your mind. Preaching this gospel of a dead man come back alive. Well, that was the gospel that Paul teaches, that the death and burial and resurrection of Jesus Christ was the power of God unto salvation. We say it here that, the course said that it was the demonstration that love is not real. That death is not real. That's what Jesus was demonstrating, that love, that death is not real. That Jesus was demonstrating that all things have been reconciled back into the one thing, that God was in Christ, reconciling the whole world into the one thing, into the one reality. In other words, we've been delivered from the dreams. We've been delivered from the idea of separation. We've been delivered from sin consciousness, guilt, and fear. That what the demonstration of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ was symbolic of, according to the course. So Paul comes into Rome, and with this new information, this what they call this new doctrine that he speak of. So they're going to bring him among all of the Romans. So they go up into Athens, and all of them gather around. They want to hear this new gospel, this new doctrine that Paul was teaching. As a Course in Miracles teacher, who had its beginnings in the gospel of Christ. I was raised and born as a Christian and a believer, and I still am. I still am a Christian. I'm a Buddhist. I'm a Jew. I'm a Muslim. I'm everything. I'll be all things to all men, that I may win some, like Paul said. Because I realize none of those labels really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. There's only one of us. We all share this one life. So all the labeling that creates division and separation, I don't buy into that anymore. And so sometimes, as a Course in Miracles teacher, I know I get inquiry sometime about what is this, what is this new doctrine? Just like you said, is this new doctrine wherever you speak, whereof that thou speakest. Well, I'm speaking the gospel. I'm speaking the gospel, the only gospel or the only good news that there is. And the good news is that God is and there is nothing else. That God is and therefore we are. Therefore I am. That God is and we are part of that isness, that oneness, that life, that love. There is no separation. That is the only gospel in the grand scheme of things. All of us choose different religious paths to get us started on our way. But you got to start somewhere. And some of us don't choose any kind of path. And that's a good thing in most cases. Then we don't have to unlearn so much. We don't have to undo so much. And so here Paul is. For all the Athenians, he was in Athens. For all the Athenians, notice now, it says for all of them, all of the Athenians and the strangers, which was there, spent their time in nothing else, but either to tell or to hear some new thing. So that was the culture in Rome. They were always about hearing some new thing. They spent all their time in nothing else, but either to tell something new or to hear something new. That's just the culture. Then Paul stood up in the midst of Mars Hill, or Mars Hill. That's just the little section where he was. Paul stood up among the Romans in Athens in the midst of Mars Hill and said, ye men of Athens, ye men of Athens, ye men of Rome. He said, I perceive in all things that you are too superstitious. Too superstitious. You guys are over the top when it comes to superstition. You guys all got all kind of old wives' tales that you hold on to. You have all kind of traditions that you hold on to. You have all kind of the beliefs and phobias and concepts that you're holding on to. And he said, you go from one to another. He says, you are too superstition. You can't do this. You can't do that. You know how it was when Jesus came on the scene. They say, look, man, you can't pull your cow out of the ditch on Sunday. It's the Sabbath. You got to keep it holy. You can't hang out with the wine bibbers. You can't go to the club. You can't eat this. You can't drink that. All these you can't do's and don'ts. You can't smoke. You can't dip. You can't chew. You can't dance. You can't wear this. You can't wear that. You can't put this on. You can't get this on your body. You can't do all of these superstitions, because that's what he categorized all of that. All these superstitions. What does that got to do with our oneness? What any of that has to do with the fact that we're in this temporary world, having a temporary experience, and nothing that we do here alters our permanence. Nothing that we do here changed reality. It's merely experiences. And when the experiences are over, guess what? We wrap them all up, right? And we move on. But here in Rome, here in Athens, here in Mars Hill, these people were very superstitious. For Paul said, for as I passed by, as I walked down Main Street, and behold all of your devotions, all of your statues, all of your idols, all of your things that you have made, all of the ways that you have tried to find meaning in life. He says that I walk down the street and see all these devotions, these things that you are devoted to, these things that you put in high esteem. Devoted to government, devoted to devoted to a practice, devoted to a national idea. All these are devotions. What are we devoted to? Devoted to fear and anxiety and suffering, devoted to separation, devoted to inequality. See, these are all devotions. Devoted to, completely living on the level of body satisfaction. These are all devotions. So he says, then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill and said, ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things you are too superstitious. For as I passed by and behold your devotions. I'm in Acts chapter 17, verse 23. For as I passed by and beheld your devotions, I found an altar with this one inscription. He said, as I was observing all of your devotions, all of your statues, all the things that you hold in high esteem. He said, I noticed on one of the altars an inscription that says, to the unknown God. So the idea here was what? They were devoted to a God that was unknown. Their whole idea was God could not be known. And so if you know God could not be known, how can humanity be known? Because God is the source of humanity. So no wonder the confusion, no wonder all the superstitions, no wonder all of the devotions, because they had no idea about their own identity, let alone God. So they even had an altar and a shrine to the unknown God. In other words, they were saying God could not be known. That was their conclusion. And so no wonder they sit around day in and day night to hear something new, to say something new. But all of a sudden, Paul comes into town and they say, this guy has saying some crazy, insane things. We want to hear. So they drag him into the center. They drag him on Main Street, Rome. And Paul notices this inscription to the unknown God. To the unknown God. And then Paul said, whom therefore you ignorantly worship. So he's saying that this unknown God that you ignorantly worship, he say, this unknown God I declare unto you. So Paul's saying this God that y'all think is unknown, Paul said, I know him. And I'm going to declare him to you. In other words, I'm going to reveal this unknown God to you. So being ignorant just means not knowing. It's not a bad word. I know in our culture, we think when someone say you're ignorant, that we see that as a negative word. That's not a negative word. That's a positive word. All of us are ignorant to what we don't know. None of us have the full awareness, because see, full awareness is infinite. It's always expanding. It's always unfolding. So being ignorant is not bad. In fact, it's required. All of us, it just means that we're stuck with what we know. You've heard me say here that all of us are stuck in the awareness that we have. But the good news is, if we're doing the inner work, if we're open to the reality of our oneness with the divine and with the infinite and with all intelligence, then we're daily receiving, moment by moment, we're receiving downloads, we're receiving more revelation, more inspiration, more divine messages, more awareness, more consciousness on a day by day, moment by moment basis. Unless we're stuck. And I've closed ourselves off. Or covered up our reality. And so he say, wherefore ye ignorantly worship him, declare I I unto you, the unknown God. What he's saying is, I'm going to declare to you that God is not unknown, but God is known. In fact, he's going to tell them who they are. So verse 24 says, God that made the world. So he's getting ready to do an elementary class for them. That God or love or reality or truth or light, whatever term you want to use, who made the world. There's only one source. That's what the word God means. There's one source. The source that made the world. That which is one cause. That is which is first cause. That which is the only cause. That made the world and all things therein. And see, Paul didn't have all the revelation right here. Because we already told you, God did not create this world, did not make this world. We did. And you got to go back some lessons to hear that. But I got to go on. I'm already not going to get through my lesson today. But God that made the world and all things therein, in the sense that all things have their being in God. There can nothing be if it didn't exist in God. That's what he's saying here. Right? Because God didn't make the mess in your life. You did. But the mess in your life couldn't be made unless there was a foundation that we call what? Source, or we call God. So in a sense, we use the power of God. We use the beingness of God as this individual separated ego self to make things. But then we blame the mess on God. So that's what Paul is saying here, that God that made the world and all the things therein, seeing that he is Lord. That word Lord just means law. God is the law. There's only the one law, and that's the law of love. That he is the Lord of heaven. He's the law in heaven and of earth. And it says here that this God, this law, this source does not dwell in temples made with hands. Yeah. This God, this source, this reality, this truth, this being, this love doesn't dwell in temples that's made of hands. So nothing in this world can contain the one source. There's nothing in this world. That's not an idea. That's not an event or an activity. That's not a religion or a government. There's not one team. There's not one science. There's not one art. There's not one idea or thought that can contain the infinitude, the infiniteness of God. Not one book. Not even the Course in Miracles, not even the Bible, not even the Quran, not even the Buddha's book, all these other religious books. They're all just pointers, pointing us to the truth. They're not the truth. The truth is not in form. The truth is not in time. The truth is timeless and formless, without limit, without boundaries. There's nothing that we can make to put bounds on the truth. There's nothing that we can make to put bounds on reality. There's nothing that we can create or make to put bounds on God. So if you think your little group is it, I'm sorry. If you think you have all of it, I'm sorry. In the sense that you do have all of it. But all of it, right? All of it is continuing to unfold. We're not in full awareness of it. But we have it all. That phone you got, that iPhone you got, that Android phone, you probably ain't using 5% of its capacity, but you got it all. Right? You probably ain't using about 5% of what it could do, but you got it all. What's the difference between you experiencing it all and only experiencing 5%? Is your awareness, your knowledge, your knowing. We're ignorant to all of the capacity. And that's likewise, that's the same truth about who we are and our identity. We got it all. We got all of God, and God is all of us. But we're ignorant too. We don't have all of the awareness of what all that is. But we have it all. We are complete in Him. There is nothing missing and nothing broken in our reality. There is no lack in us. There's no scarcity in us. There's no birth. There's no death. We have it all. That comes through the knowledge of the truth. That's come through the knowing. And as we know it, we begin to experience it. We begin to have a direct experience of our true self. And so Paul was saying here that no, you cannot put this unknown God in a box or on a statue or on an altar or on a shrine. It cannot hold the all-encompassing, endless, infinite power that life is, that God is. He says, neither is this God worshipped with men's hands. You know, we like to say, where we worship God. He says, neither is this God worshipped with the hands of men, as though God needed anything. See, we got this idea that God needs something. God don't need anything. God is not a human with human emotions. God is not fickle like the human experience is. God doesn't vacillate back and forth. God is permanence. God is love, and that's it. So God doesn't need anything. But we think, like he says here, we worship God. And I'm not downplaying being inspired to have a gratitude and a thanksgiving and an appreciation for the source of life. That's not what I'm saying. So don't take me wrong. I'm not befunning any of that. I'm just saying, when that becomes what we think is required or needed, or or if I'm doing it and they don't, then they're not in God and I am. I'll see all of that come into play, and that's foolishness. That's foolishness. Even Paul said it's foolishness. He said God don't need anything, seeing that God has given to all. God has given to all. Life, breath, and all things. God has given everything to all. And what God gives, God doesn't separate from what He gives. God is what He gives. It's the gift of God Himself. God gave Himself to us. God gave Himself to life, to extension of life. God has given Himself to humanity. And in that giving, guess what? There's no separation. Because God said what? I gave what I am. And what I gave, I am that. I'm one with what I gave too. The giving and receiving is the same. I give to myself. But God had become what He gave. And if He gave to all living things, that means gave to you. That means God had become you. God is you. Seeing seeing that he giveth to all life and breath and all things, and hath made of one blood. Notice now, if you think your blood is different than someone else, and has made of one blood all nations. That means that all nations are blood brothers and sisters. All nations are one, and have given of all one blood all nation of men, for to dwell on the face of the earth. And has determined, notice now, he has determined the time before appointed and the bounds of our habitation. So you weren't just born in that family by mistake or by choice or by the lottery. You were born into that family purposely. That was predetermined. The time and the appointed place and the bounds of your habitation. So you are not just on this continent or in this country or in this state or on this planet or in this world by accident. You're not. And where you are is strategic. The very family you was born into, the very community that you were born in, the very race that you was born in, the very time of your habitation. It says it right here. It says the time before appointed. So you're listening to me here in this 2023 year of our Lord. You was purposed to be here. You are right on time. You're always in the right place at the right time. Because God determines the bounds of all of our habitations. God determined the time. So just look around you. What's in your life? Who's in your life? Where you are in life. There is a universal plan associated with that. There's a universal plan associated with all of your past. There's a universal plan that God is weaving this grand tapestry to bring all humanity back into a place of awareness of their oneness, awareness of their true identity, of their God self. That's what it's all about. It's not about the car or the girl or the guy or the house or the money or the relationships or the team or the school or the church or the organization. It ain't about that. I mean, you choose to be a part of that, and that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with it. But when you don't understand what it's for, that means that we're in searching for this unknown God. And so that's what I meant when I said your life has been absolutely perfect. Why? When you wake up to the truth of who you are and wherever you find yourself, when you really find yourself, you will discover that you are in the right place. You are in the perfect place. You're in the perfect moment. You're in the perfect era. You're in the perfect consciousness and awareness. To now enter into the school where you come to know the will of God. And you begin to take your place and play your role as the light of the world. When you come to understand that your only function is forgiveness, that all is one and one is all, that we're all of one blood, of one habitation, from the one source, from the one life, that there is no separation, that all is one and one is all. That's what we wake up to. And now we have a mission. We have a call in our life to bring this awareness to those that are still asleep, those that are still worshiping the unknown God, those that are still worshiping the sky God, the God that is outside of them, the God that is away from them, the God that is holy and they are unholy. All these ideas of separation, that's the unknown God. You say, what does this have to do with the ego? This is the ego. That's what ego is. All of this falsity that stands in between you and your peace, you and your acceptance of your true identity, of your oneness with God and all living things. That's what stands in between you. That's the edge out of God. It's a false idea. It's not even real. The ego is not real. We're going to get into that. Not today, because I've already gone down I took the exit to Rome. And has made of one blood all nations, for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation. Why? That they should seek the Lord, or the law, or that they should seek reality. All of this, you have come and you are in the place that you are so that you can seek reality, so you can seek the knowing of yourself, so that you can seek the law, the one law of God, which is the law of love, that they may happily seek the Lord. If happily they may what? Feel after him and find him, though he be not what? Though he be not far from every one of us. And Paul said it over in John, that he is over in Romans, that he is close. The source of all life is as close to you as your breath. It's in your mouth. It's in your heart. It is you. He says, for in him, for in this one source, for in this God, in this love, in it, not out of it, not separate from it, but within. He say, for within him we live, we move, and we have our what? We have our being. That means that we share this life. We share this energy. We share this being. We are the same being that God is. As certain also of your own poets who said, for we are the offsprings of God, for we are the creation of God. You are not the creation of yourself. That's the idea of the ego, that the ego made something that is real. Well, how can you take that which is unreal and make something that is real? That's the bamboozle. The bamboozling conditioning that humanity has been on for a long time. And so, for we are the extension of God. We are the projection of God. We are the representation of God. That's why Jesus said, when you've seen me, you have seen the one source, the one Father, the one life, the one love, the one blood. And you now here in 2023, I'm here in 2023, and all the other 8 billion people on this planet are all here in the person of God, but may not know it. But you are here to represent the divinity of God. We are only here for God. And until we wake up to that reality, we will still notice the experiences of darkness all over the place. And that's man's doing. It has nothing to do with love. It has nothing to do with reality. It has everything to do with unreality and the fact that we're still holding on, that we're still embracing an idea of a separate self, of an ego self that is separate from God and from one another. And that we're making a safe place, that we're going to find our way. Like he said, like we will happily feel after him as though God is outside of us. No, God is you. And until you accept that reality, you're going to feel outside of yourself. You're going to look out into the world looking for peace, looking for joy, looking for fulfillment, looking for identification. And it's not out there. It's not outside of you. It's not in your religion. It's not in your nation. It's not in your government. It's not in your gender. It's not in your race. It's not in your club. It's not in your fraternity or sorority. It's not in any of these things. There's nothing wrong with any of these things. But when we use these things to be superstitious, to be idols, to be a substitute to the reality of who we are, then they stand in between us and our reality. And you have to call it what it is. He said, you're very superstitious. You're ignorant. And that's not bad. That's good. All of us are to some level and to some degree. It's not a bad word. It just helps us locate where we are. I don't know everything about my car, but I drive it. So that means I'm ignorant to the way it operates when you get down to it. But it's not bad. It still operates. I still get the good out of it. That's why we make mechanics. That's why I take it to people that do know. If we take our car to the people that do know, why don't we take ourselves to the one creator that does know who we are and ask the question, what am I? I think I'm sounding like, I guess this is how Paul talked when he was in Athens. Man, y'all are, look, let me tell y'all something. Y'all are very superstitious. I'm going to let you know about this God that you say is unknown, that God can't be known, that we can't be God, that we're just human, we're just sinners, we're just human beings, we're just limited. We can't be this, we can't do that. We can't talk about God like that. God is going to get us, blah, 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 blah. All that religious garbage that we've been conditioned in and still holding on to. And it's making us sad. It's making us hurt. It's making us sick. It's making us joyless, fearful, full of anxiety. That's where it's coming from. We won't embrace the reality of who we are. So you are where you are because that's where you are perfect right where you are. See, what's more important? What's more important than where you are physically? What's more important is for you to come to know who you are in reality. That's more important regardless of where you are. Because when you discover who you are and what you are, you realize that where you are is everywhere. There's no place that you are not. Because you come to understand that you are one with the source of everything, all life, all power. And it has been given unto you in heaven and in earth. That is what is most important. Not where you are, not what family you was born in. What difference does that make? Let go of the idea that I was born in the wrong family, in the wrong race, in the wrong city, in the wrong country, under the wrong religion. Let all of that go. It doesn't mean anything. You was born perfectly. It was all designed for you to find yourself. And if you're listening to me, listen, if you're listening to me, I'm an answered prayer. I'm an answer to a prayer that you prayed. if you're listening to me. If you're listening to me, you're listening to me because you're ready to wake up. If you're listening to me and keep coming back listening to me because you're ready to wake up, that's all. And I'm no different than you. Jesus is no different than you. It's just a matter of whether we are awake or whether we're asleep to the truth. That's it. You know, you can hear people say, well, there's three kinds of people in the world. There's 5 kinds of people in the world. There's this kind of people in the world. No, there's only 2. There's only one kind of person in the world. They're the offsprings of God, and that's it. We're going to leave it at that. Every person is a creation of God. One kind of person. Now, the experiences that we choose to have, there's a multitude of experiences that we choose to have. And some of us choose to what? We choose to live way below our inheritance. And that's okay. It doesn't change anything. You just have them like a bad dream. For in him we live, we move, and we have our being. As the certain also said of the poet, we are the offsprings of God. So, for as much then as we are the offsprings of God. So, Paul is introducing them to the God that they thought was unknown. And he just told them that this God is not unknown. In fact, this God is what you came into an awareness and a consciousness from. He was saying that the same consciousness and the same awareness that God is the same consciousness and awareness that you are a part of, that give you the instinctive awareness that you exist as a being. Your very awareness that you exist, that I am, that is God. It's what he's saying here. That is the life of God. The mere fact that you can think, that you can choose, and you can choose again and again and again. The mere fact that you can take a desire and bring it into form. That you have the freedom of choice. That you have the freedom to come to the truth. That's what the freedom was given to you for, ultimately. To know the truth. Because see, if you wasn't free, you couldn't know the truth. But because you are free. You are free to become aware of your true self. That's it. That's all. It says that for as much as we are the offsprings of God, we ought not to think that the Godhead, we ought not to think that God is some kind of limited form or separate idea, or has a separate place, or exists outside of us, or exists as something else greater than us. He said that we shouldn't think that the Godhead is like unto gold, or to silver, or to stones, or graven by art, or man's devices. He said we shouldn't think that. We should not think like that anymore. Even we think like that when we think that God is unknown. But when we find out that God is, and there is nothing else, and that we are a part of that God is, that self, that one life, that one blood, we should not think anymore as anything been outside of us, as anything been separate from us, as anything been apart from us. Because all things live and move and have its being in this oneness that we all share. So we shouldn't think that way. We shouldn't think that God is in form. The form that's outside of us. We shouldn't even think that God is in this body form, because it's only temporary. But God is timeless and formless and boundless and unlimited and infinite. And that's what we are part of. And so we shouldn't even think that God is bound by the limitations of a body, or a government name, or a government number, or even a government, or even a world, or even a clock with time, or even space. God transcends all of that and much more. That means that you've been a part of that. You transcend this world of form. In the times of this ignorance, notice now what he's getting ready to say. This is where I wanted to get to. There was a time where this ignorant was being ignorant was because we didn't know. Even the information wasn't available. So how can you know if the information is not even available? Because grace and peace comes through knowledge. Grace and peace be multiplied through us through the knowledge. So without knowledge, how could we not be anything but ignorant? That's why I said ignorant is not bad. All of us were there. And he said, here he says, in the times of this ignorance, God winked at. Why? Because God knew the revelation of man's reality was not in a form that man could come to understand and to know. But then the man Christ Jesus showed up. God sent that revelation in the same form that we were stuck in the same time, on the same planet that we were stuck in. God sent that revelation. In the man Christ Jesus. Not as some special man, not some different man, but one that decided for himself that he would only embrace the truth. That's the only difference between any two people. One may embrace the truth and the others say what? He wink at it. And that's what we're doing here right now. We've either embraced the truth of who we are, or we're still winking at it. I said, no, I'm okay. I'll find a way. I'll work it out. And we go and we get some more pain. We go and get some more suffering. Some of us go to the point that where we hit rock bottom and we can't go nowhere else but up. And it doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way we chose, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. It's just that, I don't have a lot of pain tolerance. So as a young man, as a man in my teens, as a man in my early 20s, that voice just kept speaking to me. It just kept inviting me. And I would ignore it for a while. I would bury it with life. I would bury it with habits. I would bury it with, the idea that the world had the answer. But there came a time in my life early, very early, thank God, that I said, I want to know what's going on. This is insanity out here. So as a young man, I said, God, I want to know. And guess what? God said, thank you. Ask and it shall be given. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be open. And so I've been on this spiritual journey purposefully most of all of my life. It has nothing to do with my behavior. It has nothing to do with my history. It has to do with the idea that I started listening. I started seeking. And I'm still listening and seeking. Because when I think I know something, I realize I don't know anything. Why? Because there's so much to know. There's so much to be. There's so much to experience. There's so much to share. This love is amazing. Who we are in truth is amazing. It's beyond finding out. That's one of the writers said. No, it is not beyond finding out. It's not unknown. It is known. And it's within all of us. All that there is within all of us right now. It's not something that happens or you get in the future. But no, it is who you are in this present moment. That's the good news. That is the good news. And that's what Paul was telling these people in Athens. That God that you thought was aloof, that was out there, the God is here. The God is you. And there was a time that God winked at the fact that you didn't know that. But he's no longer winking at that. Why? Because all the revelation has been poured out without measure upon humanity. The Spirit of truth is here, permeating, penetrating, and filling all the interspaces of the universe. So no man is without excuse. Like they say, well, how would they know if they have not heard? And how would they hear without a spokesperson, without a teacher? Well, the teacher has appeared. So we're still without excuse. He said, well, you can look into the heavens, and the heavens will declare the glory of God. So you don't need a teacher. All of us have an internal teacher. Our true self is our internal teacher. So that's why I describe myself as a temporary teacher, a temporary guide, a temporary host, a temporary coach. Because I'm like you. I'm in school too. I'm growing in my awareness just like you. I'm no different than any other human being on this planet. But I have chosen to give myself over to this light. I've tried the darkness, and it didn't fit very long. I love the light. It fits me perfectly. It fits humanity perfectly. And I ain't taking it off. I try on new pieces of wardrobes every day. I look for it. I ask for it. I don't want any other. He say, but now he's not winking anymore. But he commands or he calls to. There's no coercion in love. But he's calling all humanity. Everywhere to have a change of mind. Here he used the word repent. And repent means just have a change of mind. There is a change of mind that needs to occur. I got to stop right there because if I go another 45 seconds, I'm not going to be able to do with this broadcast what I want to do. So I have to end it in the next few seconds. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to me. I did not get into the full study of what is the ego. I will continue that on tomorrow. But in the meantime, I've given you enough to think about until tomorrow. Have a great day. It's the only one that there is. I love you so much. Bye.